Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this portion of tonight's meeting, Public Works. We've foregone the Administration and Finance meeting to have this meeting tonight on Tuesday, today, April the 18th. Note to members of the public, all cell phones, pagers, PDAs to be turned off as we are being videotaped via YouTube. I am your chair, Jason Trombetta. And I'll start with, is there any change in orders of the agenda? Start to my left, to my right, seeing none. Any disclosure of peculiar interest or conflict of interest? To my left, right, seeing none. We'll move on to appointments. Each scheduled appointment shall be a maximum of 10 minutes, exclusive for the time for them to answer questions. I see it's a full house tonight, so I would like everyone to refrain from either cheering, clapping, or booing. I would like to encourage everyone to come up and voice their opinion tonight. There will be other people that would like to come up and state a few things. So again, I would refrain, even though I encourage your passion in this community, to please refrain from clapping or booing to allow other people to come speak who want to come speak. First on the agenda, we have item PW 2117, Mr. Willis, to come to the podium. Hello, Mr. Willis.
Good evening.
How are you?
Top drawer.
Good to see you again.
As well. My name is Dave Willis. I live on Wade Road here in town. Chairman Trombetta, councillors, mayor, staff, media, huge gallery. Tonight, you will be debating the new multi-use recreational complex. There are 4 different submitted proposals, with staff committee choosing one of those proposals. Let me start with a recap of some history with my sources of information from the Public Works Arena Committee meeting October 19th, 2015, when the MERS proposal came about. This should act as a bit of a reminder for the council. This council ordered public roundtables in July of 2015, conducted by Monteith Brown, planning consultants, at a cost of $6,000. Their summary, found in Appendix D as presented to the council, showed that 42 plus citizens took time to attend one of these roundtables. A brief summary showed that 5 were concerned about the impact on taxes that a new facility would have on their property taxes. Another 3 said the township couldn't afford it, while 6 said to improve or better utilize school facilities, example gyms, existing halls, and outreach programs. Finally, 5 said they didn't see a need for the new facility. Thank you. Admittedly, this is a very small sample of citizen input. So this council ordered a multi-purpose recreational facility survey, a community consultation plan to be delivered to each home in West Lincoln, with input from the citizens to be submitted manually or online. A total of 1,002 responded to the survey and returned the same. A much better response. Question 2 asked, how willing would you be to pay higher property taxes? An astounding 581 out of the 1,002 responded not at all willing. That's 60.77%. While 56 responded they would be completely willing to pay higher property taxes. That equates to 5.86%. The message was loud and clear. The vast majority would not support higher taxes for the proposed facility. Tonight you will be debating on the RFP that was chosen, the Ball Construction design build for a new complex at $23.2 million. This is for a complete complex, not the stage proposal requested in the RFP process. The game keeps on changing. Here we are being presented with a tax increase of 10.1% over the next 2 years on our taxes just for the MERS. This is not counting any further increases for other assessments in these 2 years. The 30-year debenture will be over and above the maintenance and replacement costs incurred for the complex during the 30-year period. There has been no mention as to how many additional staff will be hired for the MERS, i.e. library, arena, gym, multi-purpose rooms, splash pad, walking track, etc., etc. This extra staffing hours, of course, impacts on our already heavy tax burden. Councillors, we can't afford the Cadillac. October 19, 2015, again from previous records, item PW 38-15, section 7, Councillor Chichok made a motion that was passed by this council stating the construction of the new facility would start only after $3.6 million was raised outside of grants and tax dollars. I would trust that still stands today. The fundraising then better hurry up, as this new proposal has construction starting in May or June of this year, or July, as another section of the proposal shows. There have been many, many presentations to committee, editorials and articles in the two community papers, phone calls and letters also generated, and lately a referendum collected outside of the council. Virtually all against the MERS. Have you not heard the outcry? There have been many alternatives presented to this council. In 2015's decision was to turn down a proposed new $14 million complex. Please revisit those early proposals, but this time consider rehabbing the existing arena, relocate the library to one of the several local facilities, and utilize some such facility buildings for seniors and community groups. What with all the other controversies, wind turbines, huge transmission towers, guardrails, and the closure of South Lincoln High School, all rightly or wrongly under your control, the public sees these as yours. Politically, if this new facility is a go, if I was a councillor, I'd be very concerned about my job for the election next year. You should think the same and vote this project down. Consider wants versus needs. Thank you. And I do have a copy, Bonnie.
Thank you, Mr. Willis. Thank you. Good to see you again, Dave. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Willis, for your comments. And thank you, crowd, for, again, not cheering or not booing the speaker coming up. And I'd like to continue that as we move forward. We're going to have a lot of people speak. As I've said, we have a lot of new people in the gallery tonight than usual. And I'd like to encourage them to come up and speak if they have something to say further as the agenda goes on. So now we'll move on to Mrs. Pickvance, item PW 22-17. Mrs. Pickvance, there you are. Hi, Mrs. Pickvance, how are you? Please just state your name, your name and your address as you usually do. Just
Brenda Pickvance, Caister Center.
Thank you.
Okay, big crowd tonight. Going through some things that are on the township's website. Probably the first thing I came across was the web page that comes up first under the township, that talks about the 1970 amalgamation of West Lincoln as we know it today. Based on agricultural land, industrial, commercial sectors, rural and urban living. Let's please not forget that there's still 9,000 folks in the rural area and approximately 6,000 in the urban area. It also mentions that West Lincoln is serviced by well-maintained automotive routes. Well, I could argue that one back and forth, but not tonight. Then came along the Community Strategic Plan in June 25th of 2012. One of the primary pillars of that was called quality of life. And there was a mission statement that was adapted from that and is on the bottom of your letterhead that I have probably read 1,000 times from reviewing agendas and minutes. The Township of West Lincoln will be a community that values our heritage, preserves our environmental and natural resources, fosters entrepreneurial spirit, and provides excellent quality of life. Let's go back. We know the heritage is around the farming community. Preserving the environmental and natural resources, there is definitely preservation and protectionism, if you want to say that today, around farmland and around naturally wooded areas. The government has more or less squashed any future severances in the rural areas, and with the regional tree cutting bylaw, it means that our current forest canopy out there will remain as it should. You've all seen the recreational guide, and just to make sure everybody knows the size of West Lincoln as a whole and how small Smithville is in the midst of all that. It's towering. And that vast area outside of Smithville is predominantly farmlands and forest cover. Important today in a bedroom community as it grows and there's more and more commuting going on, that we protect that forest cover and give it some respect that it deserves. It also stated in the community strategic plan, there is a need for all residents to ensure and understand a balance of services as well as fiscal responsibility. The Mears project must be reconsidered and phased in. There isn't probably anyone here tonight that will say the arena does not need some work, be it refurbishing or a complete rebuild. The library will be adequate short term. Township office space, again, adequate short term. Things like a skateboard park, splash pad can be added down the road. The additional cost of doing the project in increments, not as costly as borrowing. Fund the arena through the proposed development charges, reserves, fundraising, etc. The community fund and the road use agreement must be used to help the rural infrastructure that is so desperately needed. To clean up damage from the wind turbine construction and start fixing the rural roads. We have to do something with these existing roads. Call it muck or dust. The current plan does not work. Crush run sinks into clay. Gravel gets taken off in the wintertime from the grader. Calcium applications are useless. Fix them properly. Councillor Rayner, I applaud you for bringing it up at a recent council meeting that perhaps the region needs to help us in this regard and back off some of the regional taxes. And I think we really need the province to come on board as well. So, just so, everybody knows that this is not fake news. This is transparency.
Sorry, Mrs. Pickfans. Just if you want to hold up what you have there to show everyone, because people are probably wondering. I can't see.
Absolutely. Samples from rural roads. There are 3 samples here. Caster clay, right out of my back 40. Gravel, what they say we have on our roads. And the one in between, that's my road, right at the end of the driveway. Note the color between clay and what's come off my road. If these were 2 paint chips, pretty hard to distinguish between them. So, Mayor Joyner, I do hope that you'll reconsider your response to me that these roads will never get fixed. That is completely unsatisfactory. And that's all I have to say tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Pickvance, for your presentation and demonstration. Again, I'd like to refrain everybody from clapping or cheering or booing, please, to encourage other people to come up and talk. Could I, Mrs. Pickvance, we didn't get a copy of your presentation.
Yes, I'll email one in.
Is that sufficient enough? Thank you. Next on the agenda, we have Mr. Paul Wiebe. Mr. Wiebe, welcome back. How are you?
Very well.
Please state your name and address for the residents here tonight and us.
Hello, everybody. My name is Paul Wiebe. I live on 6 North Ridge Drive here in town. So
Again, people, please, I know we're passionate, but we just want to continue on. Thanks, Carter. Go ahead, Mr. Wiebe.
I know you've heard from me once already, and I gave my spiel about what was going on in town, but this has become a little greater than what I am. This has grown so far and so much that I couldn't just sit back and not keep going with what I was doing, what I had accomplished. I have accomplished more in 3 months than what you guys have done in 7 years. I have informed the public about what's going on in 3 months. People had not even heard of the Mears Project before I brought it to their attention. That means you guys were not doing your jobs properly. I've been cornered a few times and asked for a sit-down between myself and the head of our Community Advisory Committee. I was asked, why all of a sudden now am I speaking up about this issue? Well, I told it to her straight, is I had enough confidence in my council until that date in January that my council was working, that I had enough confidence in them, that I didn't have to say anything. Now, things have changed. It's done a complete 180. You know, I did have confidence in you. But when we start speaking of money and how extravagant our lives have become, that we now can't afford any small little frivolities. It's not even extravagant. We're barely surviving now. I don't know how we can go and spend $30 million over the next 30 years, which is the longest, correct me if I'm wrong,
No, it's 23.6.
23.6 plus interest, right?
Well, continue on.
About
Continue on.
$30 million. So, anyways, this money over the 30 years, nobody's given any ideas as to cost of operating costs or what is actually going along with it. It was voted down the first time. So once I heard that it was going to be brought to fruition again in January, that's when I parked my truck out front and started holding up a sign. My original statement was, yeah, I'm opposed to this, recognize that, which you did. Well, I did a little investigating myself. Does anybody here know what it costs to operate an NHL-size facility per year to run it? Anybody on council? Any idea?
Sorry, an NHL arena or
Yeah,
a
NHL
municipal
size.
arena?
An NHL-sized municipal arena.
Okay, there's two different things. There's
Yes.
NHL and there's obviously a
Yes,
municipal
well,
arena.
of course, yeah. Municipal arena. Does anybody have any idea? No?
Go right ahead, Mr.
I
Reed.
did some investigating.
Sure.
I've phoned around to a lot of different places in Niagara. And anywhere from $1.1 to $1.9 million in operating costs per year just for the arena itself. So if we average that out to, say, $1.5 million a year, the 23 plus interests, approximately $30 million. 1.5 million times 30 years is another $45 million. That's just for the arena itself. Now we're up at $75 million, and we haven't added on anything else. We have no insurance. We haven't seen any. How many more hires are we going to get? Security. What is the actual cost of all of this? Well, I also did some more investigating as to particulars on, splash pads, skate parks, amphitheater, now the library, whatever else we have all rolled up into it. And with some phone calls, again, I've come up with a rough guesstimate of over the 30-year period, we're gonna be upwards of $115 million just for a sports complex. I don't think we can handle that right now. The proposal, beautiful. I love it. But we cannot do this right now. We are not in the place as a community and size to subject its citizens to such a hefty bill. I say we would have had a 1.5% return this year, correct? I say keep the 1.5%, raise it maybe another percent, refurbish the arena, and then we go from there. I know it's important to have hockey and a little facility for our children to play in. I agree with everybody here that something needs to be done with the arena. But as it stands right now, we can't afford in 30 years, $115 million, even if we did have 50,000 people. It's still astronomical. I don't know how any of you guys could push this forward. So I had, and with the help of some of the community members, put out a plebiscite. I sent out 5,610 cards to every tax-paying home in West Lincoln. I didn't have quite the time as you had for your surveys, but I did get quite the response in a week. I got 413 cards back. 5 say yes.
Sorry, you said, sorry, just for everyone's trying to listen through the chair. You sent out 5,000, you said?
5,610.
Okay.
Right, just to the tax-paying homes. I've gotten back 413 cards. 5 said yes. The 98.5% said no. But all I've been...
Sorry, so the 4,000 you got back, you're saying? Like, you said 5,000?
413
Okay,
I've got.
thank you.
I've
Sorry,
got-
just for my clarification, just so I asked that, that's all.
So, which in turn leads to 98.5% against the Mears project. It's not that we're against it. We're against spending all of the money at once. We, as a community, are your boss. We say no. Will you respect that? We do not want to pay for this right now. Why put all of your chickens in the basket before they hatch? You know, we've like I said once before, we've started a race, and we've kind of put the finish line at the beginning, which is kind of backwards. We can't do things that way. We got to work our way up, little by little. First, let's build the community. Let's redo the arena. Then we can think about frivolities later on down the road. Correct? Now, Mr. Dave Willis over here said that you guys might not have jobs next year if this goes through. Well, I'm agreeant with that because from the population
Okay, everyone,
that I've
please.
spoken to, you guys, other than Mr. Bilsma, are in everybody's bad books,
Thank you.
right? So, hey, well, it's my opinion.
Okay, Mr. Weeb, through the chair.
It's
through the
Mr. Chair.
It's through the chair, now to the gallery, not the gallery, you're through the
But-
chair.
yeah.
And you have 1 minute.
All right.
So-
This is just my opinion. I would like to put in our votes. If you would like to recount them, that's fine. There's probably a few more there than what I said, but everyone that's come back since I've been here has been a no. So that's pretty much all I have to say. is-
Sure. Thank you for,
No.
thank you. Do you have a presentation or a copy of your presentation?
Not really. I have this.
Leave that with Mr. Julian. Thank you, Mr. Weeb.
Julian, thank you.
Again, thank you, public, for not clapping and not booing again. Thank you, Mr. Weeb, for your presentation. Absolutely. Next on the agenda, we have Mrs. Naomi Bruce. Good evening, Mrs. Bruce. How are you? Please just state your name and, well, we know your name, but we just state your name and
Name
address for the
Rosa
record, please.
From Wellandport.
Thank you.
I have decided to come here this evening to explain why I think the MERS project needs to be reworked and reconsidered. Over the past couple of decades, sports stadiums and arenas have become one of the most popular economic development tools in North America. According to the Lincoln Institute of Land Policy, billions have been spent on sports facilities during the 90s and 2000s, with much of this funding coming from taxpayers. Staggering amounts of tax dollars are being spent on these projects, despite the fact that the decision makers who approve them often don't understand their real costs and benefits. And this often leads to costs soaring to levels far above those originally budgeted, and a lot of public outrage. Because arenas are so popular as economic development and city building tools, a lot of academic research has been done concerning the real costs and benefits of sports facilities. Among the benefits that were studied by the researchers were: a new arena will bring new development, new people and businesses, jobs, economic activity, social benefits, prestige and increased visibility, and last but not least, political benefits. So what did they find? New development. Although proponents often say that a new arena will stimulate new development, there is no guarantee that this will actually happen. While some cities do experience new development around sports facilities, in others, the arena remains isolated within a dilapidated, still declining area. Researchers have found that the best chance of success in this area is when new arena building is done in tandem with an effective community improvement plan. And what about bringing in new people and businesses? Academic studies of business and household relocation decisions have found that sports facilities are largely irrelevant, as businesses are usually more interested in such factors as low taxes and a supportive business climate. Households want low taxes, good schools, good roads, and good medical facilities. And what about new jobs and economic activity? Roger Knowles and Andrew Zimbalist's 1997 study, Sports, Jobs, and Taxes, was a definitive study of sports facility building and should have ended the debate over sports facilities as economic investments. Their conclusion: a new sports facility has an extremely small, perhaps even negative effect on overall economic activity and employment. No recent facility appears to have earned anything approaching a reasonable return on investment. Regardless of whether the unit of analysis is a local neighborhood, a city, or an entire metropolitan area, the economic benefits of sports facilities are de minimis. But what about social benefits? A new arena can help create a sense of community and improve quality of life by creating a meeting place, a place for social interaction with your neighbors, a place for youth to hang out and enjoy sports activities. During all the discussions that have taken place around the MERS, this has been one of the proponents' main selling points. And I have to agree that this is something we should want to encourage. But surely there are other less expensive ways of fostering a sense of community, not just for the residents of Smithville, but for thousands of other residents who live in rural West Lincoln. And what about increased prestige and community visibility for the town? A successful sports facility can project an image of a successful, ambitious community. An article in the University of Denver Sports and Entertainment Journal concluded that civic pride and prestige are one result of arena building, but are bragging rights worth the millions of dollars which have to be borne by taxpayers. The authors concluded the tax dollars would be far better spent on alternatives that would have a more direct and positive effect on the community as a whole, such as maintaining infrastructure, providing good schools, better roads, and investing in public health. Clearly, a new arena is not a magic bullet that will, on its own, quickly transform West Lincoln into a vibrant, sustainable community. But if West Lincoln doesn't build the MERS or builds a less expensive version of one, how can our township reinvent itself and revitalize itself? For some answers, I looked at West Lincoln's Community Strategic Plan and Smithville's Community Improvement Plan, which highlight the many challenges that we face and offer some solutions. One of the things these documents had to say about West Lincoln is that it consists of many isolated and separate rural communities over a large area. It consists of many individual rural communities, which makes it challenging for residents to relate to Smithville's urban core. The residents of these communities, St. Anne, Silverdale, Bismarck, Caister Center, Abington, Brassey, Wellandport, have a strong attachment to and take pride in where they live. We want to see our rural gathering places cared for and improved. But look at our local parks, community centers, and the deteriorating condition of our village centers, crumbling roads, and wonder why things can ever improve or how they can ever improve if so much of our tax dollars will be needed to support MERS. The hamlets are in an area where agriculture is still a key economic driver. Well-maintained roads and bridges are a necessity for people who must drive to get what they need, and large farm equipment, which is constantly on the move. Many rural roads have been severely damaged by the construction of industrial wind turbines. The enormous amount of money required by MERS will make it harder to find the money to properly maintain and improve rural roads and bridges. Another challenge is the coming of exponential growth, mainly around Smithville. This is partly because of the advantages of living in a small town close to nature, and partly because of the dysfunctional property market in the GTA. People will keep driving until they find a mortgage they can afford. Unless the province enacts measures to restore sanity to real estate prices in the GTA, people will continue to come to West Lincoln, arena or no arena. Unfortunately, explosive development may well cause us to lose many of the attributes that drew us here in the first place. As Joni Mitchell once wrote, "Don't it always seem to go that you don't know what you've got till it's gone? They paved paradise and put up a parking lot with a pink hotel, a boutique, and a swinging hotspot. They took all the trees, put them in a museum, and they charged the people $1.50 just to see them." These documents also looked at the difficulty of maintaining quality of life among industrial wind turbines. West Lincoln has been fractured by the HAF and NRWF projects. Many rural residents have been greatly upset during the construction phase because of noise, dust, vibration, heavy truck traffic, and the destruction of wildlife habitat and thousands of trees. And many continue to suffer because of the wind turbines. The township's decision to take almost all of the community fund to finance the MERS rather than to help improve quality of life for those affected by the wind turbines has only exacerbated the deeply felt sense of alienation in rural West Lincoln. When rural residents' taxes are set to increase so Smithville can enjoy a MERS, they find little consolation in it's for the greater good. As the strategic plan has noted, special interest in services provided should not be underscored by a rural-urban divide. These documents also looked at our limited fiscal resources. Ontario municipalities rely mostly on property taxes to fund the wants and needs of residents. Many residents interviewed in preparation for West Lincoln's strategic plan in 2012 felt the taxes here were already too high compared to the level of services received. MPAC increases are causing them to rise steadily higher. There was a concern that high taxes, together with a lack of local jobs, will make West Lincoln an unaffordable place to live. MERS in its present form will continue to make this problem even worse. And what about economic prosperity and tourism? West Lincoln's strategic plan identifies economic development and tourism as a priority and suggests encouraging tourism by promoting such community attributes such as community events, walking and hiking trails, local arts and culture, the township's heritage, and the Wellandport Boat Launch.
Mrs. Bruce, you have 1 minute.
Okay. So we have seen that academic research over the last 20 years has shown that arena building may bring some benefits, but the consensus is that these effects are not guaranteed and are often highly overrated. They question whether the benefits that do result are worth the millions of dollars in costs that have to be borne by taxpayers, and conclude that these dollars may be better spent on maintaining and improving infrastructure, building up a tax base, providing good schools and health care. So the way I see it, the West Lincoln Council is faced with two choices: build a Cadillac MERS and hope it will quickly transform the town into a vibrant, sustainable community and allow rural West Lincoln to continue its slow decline, or they can choose a more affordable MERS while continuing the slow, difficult, but important work of improving Smith Hill's downtown core, attracting new business and visitors, maintaining and improving the infrastructure to create a township center we can all care about and support, and investing in the often hidden and underappreciated assets that we have in rural West Lincoln.
Thank you, Mrs. Bruce. That, if you can just have a copy of your presentation. Thank you very much. Thank you. We'll move on to requests to address items on the agenda. This portion of this meeting allows anyone from the public to speak on the matter without a presentation in hand, just to speak on the matter for 5 minutes. So I encourage anyone who would like to come up and speak on the matter to come speak to this matter. Please raise your hand and I will come see you or come call you out to speak on this item on the agenda. I have first the new gentleman to the gallery, the gentleman in the suit on the side there, since you're first. Just please state your name and address for the record.
My name's Scott Pearson, and it's 2883 South Grimsby Road 7. It's my first time to a council meeting, and not sure of the rules, but I'd like to address you from my perspective as a father, a husband, raising a family here in West Lincoln. I was raised in Carlisle on a farm with a father who had no respect for sports, which is a shame, really, because today I have 4 children under 10, and I am raising them in West Lincoln, and of course, their father had a love for steam locomotives, and unfortunately the children have a love for sports. We have a modest home on South Grimsby Road 7. I pay almost $6,000 a year in property taxes. I have no sidewalks. I have no street lights. I pay $160 for every load of water I get, and I have to maintain my septic system on my own property. However, for the benefit of my children, having spent time in Europe and knowing the value of community, I assure you that I would be happy to accept an increase in my taxes to have this project become a reality. I may not particularly use it other than vicariously through my family. My wife using the facilities for her own physical and mental health. 3 out of my 4 children currently enrolled in sports at the existing facility. That cost I'd be willing to take. The cost that hasn't been spoken about here yet tonight was the cost to our youth who do not have activities or high-end services within a community. That cost hasn't been discussed. for children in our society who do not have regular opportunities to express themselves or become young adults through services that other communities have within this province or within the country is a huge limitation to their success. It's funny, it's quarter after 7 right now, and unfortunately this is a time when most, probably hundreds of mothers within this township, it's bath and bedtime. And they're not here to tell you of how many times they've had to sneak in to other communities, get on websites before peak times, before the registration times open, to get into swimming lessons or other types of activities that this community doesn't offer. They're not here to tell you that although they do come from rural West Lincoln, they're poaching the services that other municipalities have. I would like to tell you from an engineering perspective, roads have been discussed a lot tonight. And I think that the citizens of this township would be very, very discouraged and very unhappy with how, if roads were actually maintained from an engineering perspective the way they should be maintained, that the cost associated with building the best roads possible and the return that you'd get from a properly engineered road on the clay that we are blessed with in this county, you would not be happy with the rate of return from that investment. Once again, my family completely supports the sports complex and would support a tax increase associated with it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'd just like to refrain everyone from clapping or booing again, once again. If you have a copy, Mr. Pearson, did you have a copy of your report, or just want to do this? Again, people just like to refrain from clapping or booing, so encourage people to come up and talk. I guess you want to be next.
Well, I want to lower the bar, so he did such a good job starting out, so I'll lower
Okay,
the bar.
first-
Make other people welcome to come
Okay.
and talk, but my name's Joe Cooney, 54 Lost Road.
Thank you.
I'm going to speak from the heart, no presentation, no notes, because that's what community's built on. It's not built on taxes, it's not built on council decisions, it's about heart in a community. I guess I'm a bad dad because I brought my son here today. No bath time except 15, but we joined this community about 5 years ago, and I thought about not coming tonight because I figured, well, you know what, there's going to be a lot of people that have been born and raised and lived in Smithville for a lot longer than I, so why should I take up 5 minutes of a podium on a very important decision? But I thought I want to share my story. We looked at Smithville, we looked at Grimsby, we looked at Beansville, Stony Creek, all over when we made a house purchase in a community to move into. And our school, we had a promise of a new Catholic school. That took years, but that was a decision. We heard about a new arena. Our son's involved in hockey, and that was probably the main thing to welcome our family and embrace us into this community, was hockey. It's a Canadian thing. I know the MERS project has lots of other benefits, but for me, the hockey is a big part of it. Our son's involved, and the people we met through that environment have been amazing. So we moved here because it was a small community, which I know a lot of people in the gallery probably want to protect. Growth needs to happen in this community because your taxes are way too high. Everybody in this room knows we pay too much taxes. And the only way to get around it is not by keeping costs down and keeping projects down, but by healthy growth, bringing in industry, bringing in new homes to get more of a tax base. So you're not going to get a lower tax bill by not growing. You're not going to grow a great community without things like this project. People make decisions on home ownership by looking at this type of a project. I'll give you one example. 6 o'clock, 6 a.m., I'm looking at the trophy case, which when we get into arena, someone's going to do about it because it's really old. But there is a 1980-something Bantam winning team. And I went through, and I counted 6 fathers of my son's hockey team in that picture. I saw, you know what? I made a right decision to go join this community because people stay and live and don't leave their community if they love it. If you don't grow and make changes like this project, my son's not going to stay here. There's too much outside of this community that are growing. Every other community we go around and play hockey, and they have beautiful facilities. The pools are jumping, the library's jumping. The community is involved. skate park, that's a great idea. Wash pad, why wait for it? Build it now. You cannot grow and lower your tax base without a great project. So I just want to say my piece, give you an exact example of how people make their decisions to move into the community. The tax base I knew was crazy when I joined it, and I have no problem paying more for the taxes if you get a project like this. So thank you.
Thank you. Again, people, come on. We're all adults here, and some children are in the gallery as well. So please, I stated from the, I'm just going to say this now. I stated from the beginning, I will refrain from people clapping or booing. If it continues, we will recess the meeting. So I would like to see this. This is an important issue, and I want to encourage people to come up and speak. So again, I would refrain people from clapping or booing, or I'm going to be forced to recess the meeting. So, sorry, I saw Mrs. Mills. Sorry, she's in front. Sorry.
Good evening, Mayor Joyner, Chairman Trombetta, and the councilors.
Sorry, just state your name and.
My name is Tony Mills, and I live on 14 Garden Drive in Smithville. I've lived in this community, rural and urban, for over 30 years. Groundhog Day is a 1993 American fantasy comedy film. Bill Murray plays Phil Connors, an arrogant Pittsburgh TV weatherman who, during an assignment covering the annual Groundhog Day event in Puxatawney, Pennsylvania, finds himself in a time loop, repeating the same day again and again. On its release, Groundhog Day was a modest success and garnered generally positive reviews. It gained stronger appreciation among critics and film historians over time, and is now often listed among the greatest comedy films ever. It further entered into public consciousness, where the term Groundhog Day can represent a situation that seems to repeat over and over in government and military arenas. Welcome to West Lincoln's version of Groundhog Day. We seem to be doing the same things over and over. But this is not a comedy, it's not a fantasy, this is our life. Over the past number of years, I've presented here at Council in support of the new community center. I'm not saying arena because it's more than an arena, okay? So you can share my Groundhog Day experience. I'm going to review the points that I have made over the last few years. Our population is aging. We now have 2 generations of seniors, and we're sneaking up on a third. According to a pie graph in the Fairgrounds Master Plan and Feasibility Study of 2013, yes, 4 years ago, 25% of the population in West Lincoln was 55 and older. All of these seniors have been paying property taxes for many, many years and are not having their needs met recreationally. Seniors these days are more active longer into their lives. One of the few activities available to seniors in our community is Tai Chi. More and more, doctors are suggesting that people take Tai Chi after surgeries, strokes, and heart attacks. In this community, however, you have to climb a huge flight of stairs to get to an area where we can practice Tai Chi. So we would like to see an accessible location to practice Tai Chi, not the arena, again, a room, a place. In 2015, so I've been here a couple of years. In 2015, I spoke here and I reported on a report from the Federal Government Seniors Council, which talked about the social isolation of seniors, which stated that the #1 emerging issue facing seniors in Canada is keeping the older people socially connected and active. Social isolation is defined as a low quantity and quality of contact with others. Social isolation is different from loneliness. It can cause a lack of social cohesion and risks permanent loss of the valuable social contributions that seniors make to their communities. A decrease in contributions by seniors is a significant loss to organizations, communities, and society at large. Since socially isolated seniors are also more likely to experience mental health challenges such as depression, social anxiety, loneliness, and addictions, their social skills become atrophied. Social isolation has been correlated to dementia as well. The number one risk factor of becoming socially isolated is lack of awareness of or access to community services and programs. And the number two risk factor is ageist attitudes that prevent seniors from accessing community services and programs. Parallels were made in this study between the social isolation of seniors and that of youth who may be bullied or harassed by others. Intergenerational program was proposed as a useful approach to help both generations break isolation together. That sure sounds like a community center to me, where young people and old people and middle-aged people can all gather together. This project was approved in 2014. It was stalled in 2015 and then approved again in 2016. How much longer do we have to wait for this to happen? I strongly recommend, and I'm saying from my heart, I hope you can tell that, I strongly recommend that we move forward in this project. I don't want to repeat this again. Let's get rid of West Lincoln's Groundhog Day. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation, Mrs. Mills. If I can get a copy of your presentation. Okay, I'm going to have to, please bear with me. I'm going to try to pick, I'm not trying to pick anybody particular. There's some people in the gallery, so I'm going to go one by one. I had this older gentleman first raise his hand first in here, and we're going to get to everybody tonight. This is the night to do it, so just please keep your hands up. I will get to you. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. My
Good
name
evening,
is Klaas Zeldendrust.
How are you doing, Mr. Celdis?
Sunnydale, 18, Wesley Gardens. There are a lot of older people there. Quite a few are older than me, although some are younger too. I lived in West Lincoln for 30 years, 20 years on the gravel road, but then you slow down, of course, and 10 years in Smithville. Smithville, I saw that Smithville grew. Alma Acres came in existence the last 30 years. The house on the other side of Wade Road all came the last few years. Across the road from the Greek Community Hall came the last year or two. Besides Smithville Garage, they're going to build.
Sorry, Mr. Klaus.
Turn the outside speaker on, they can't hear in the hallway, and there's a large amount of people gathered.
Do we have speakers for the outside? Yes, we'll try to work that. Sorry, Klaus.
Yeah, it's okay.
No, thank you for that. Thank you. Just let us know if you can hear us out there, people in the gallery. We apologize for the delay. We will. Do you want me to wait? Yeah, we can just wait 2 minutes, people.
I'm sorry, the keys are supposed to be here, but they're not.
Do we have an idea where they are? So we're having trouble finding the keys for the PA system for outside. If we don't mind, would you rather us recess? You know what? We will recess the meeting for 2 minutes while she finds the.
Not a problem.
Is that okay with you, Klaus?
Sure it is.
Thank you, sir. We recess for 2 minutes and we'll be back in 2 minutes when we adjourn. Thank you.